Marshmallows. Marshmallow. This is a bit of a different video, and I decided that if I'm going to spend an hour doing this, I may as well make content out of it for the big channel. So if you like this sort of content, check out my live streams Wednesdays and Sundays, because it's basically the same thing. This is a new SVS. What is your model number? 3000 micro. And it's a little double 10-inch micro sub, and it's the first one that SVS has ever made. It's an actual little micro sub. I didn't even clean up. It's a fucking mess in here. So here's my thinking. I want to test a little micro sub where I'm going to use it all the time. Now, in this closet, come into my closet, you're going to see a sub. That's the Air Motive 12, the SE12, that has RCAs running to it. And usually I have a DAC feeding into there, and then the DAC is also feeding into powered monitors, and then I have a subwoofer and I could turn it on, or I could run RCAs in and out and use the SE12's ability to switch different, outputs, so it'll actually cut off. And the reason it's in the closet, if you guys haven't seen any of my videos for whatever reason, that is the best sounding spot according to the subcrawl for where I sit my lazy ass here. Lazy ass here, did the subcrawl, ended up in the back of the closet, sounds the best, perfect. I'll have to pick a wallpaper. Damn. So that's where the SVS has to go, into this closet. So let's come in here. These are the Emotiva amps. There's a vacuum cleaner. Yeah, no, this is life. We're gonna unplug this. We're gonna take this. So these are the things I need to hook up to the sub. There's just there's really one major problem, is the fact that I've got the Bootcart A500s out. And because if I'm not testing speakers, I actually do have a pair of speakers I could bring up here to use, but you get Bootcart A500s, you kind of want to actively use them constantly, forever. So I guess the tank wallpaper will be the wallpaper for today. So these are up here, and the thing about these is they've only got one wire, which is a very, very cheap power cord coming from Amazon. I think it was $15. And a lot of the reviews it's going to set fire to your house, so sorry. But that's it, because it's wirelessly connected to the control box, and the control box down there only has a fiber optic input. So, and there's no subwoofer out. It's just literally fiber optic from computer into box, wirelessly connect to those, fucking done. Get your own remote control, you're done. I'm done. I don't have to do anything. Do these need a subwoofer? No, not in particular, because they're A500 boot carts. They get down real low into the 30s. But like I said, I want to use this on a daily basis, and this room gets used way more than any spots in my basement would get used. So what I'm going to do is complicate the fuck out of using this sub. Not because I want to, but because I kind of have to. You see, what I need to do, and actually it would be even easier than I'm doing it with this, but it wouldn't be right, is I'm going to hook up my spare mini DSP Nano Digi, which this one is the same unit that's downstairs controlling my front end of my big home theater. And if you don't know how this unit works, I'll unplug all the plugs. It has two inputs, fiber optic and coaxial digital inputs. So I'm going to take the fiber optic from my computer and put it into it. And then you plug it in power, you plug it in USB to a control software, which will be on this computer, and you have 4 coaxial digital outputs. So these 4 coaxial digital outputs could just literally be cloned 1, 2, 3, 4, and I could plug the A500 switch box into one of them. And I brought up a DAC, and I just needed a DAC with RCA outs. I didn't really need a remote or anything, so JDS Labs Element, ELDAC 1 actually. Not an ELDAC 2, JDS Labs ELDAC 1. I'm gonna just run a coaxial from here to here. I'm gonna get RCAs. The RCAs are gonna go to the sub, which will be in the closet. Done. What this will also allow me to do, however, is to take low end away from the A500s. Actually, it'll give me 4 profiles to switch between, so I can do things automatically and awesomely. But it will basically allow me to say, okay, you are outputting stereo, perfectly clean to the A500s, except we're going to take away anything under 50 hertz or 60 hertz, wherever I decide I want to push to that little subwoofer. And then that subwoofer is going to be on a separate DAC, on a separate output, and that's going to get a nice JDS Lab EL DAC signal, boom, right into you, and you're going to get everything that these are not getting, and I'll be able to, I actually could do some slight room corrections with just manually tuning inside of this. I don't think that should be necessary. My biggest problem is just getting all this shit to fit in my very, very small setup, because that's a 43-inch 4K. It's one of the ones I was using for my sim racing. Now the sim racing is in the basement, and this is just, remember that wall art from, that looks so good there. So we can take away this. Oh, Jesus. I think I can take this away. Hold on. Take this out. This, what is this hooked up? Oh, the RC is hooked up. This is my SMSL VMV D1 $1,300 DAC, and I was so proud of it. Now I know DACs don't really make a difference, but it's such a heavy monster. It weighs so much. Jesus God. So that was my setup for using powered monitors, because it has a little remote. Here's the remote, and you just go in and do things. Wow, it completely flattened that towel. So how many plugs do I have? I need at least 2 for that. Perfect. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to hook it up, hopefully, and show you how it makes the go, and then we'll see if it goes. That's it. I'm not going to make this like this. And if you want to watch me not stopping, talking, and just doing things and struggling, live streams, Wednesdays and Sundays. Links in the description. But for now, I'm going to pause this, and we're going to see how this goes. Oh, God. Welcome to what we in the industry call a clusterfuck. So put that there. That's my original FLIRC, and the thing to control my keyboard and touchpad, because they're not Bluetooth, because those lag. We now have the JDS Labs DAC hooked up to the subwoofer in the closet. We've got coaxial digital running into the boot cart sending module, fiber optic coming from the computer into the mini DSP. Everything's plugged in, USB's plugged in. I have to see if I might still have the software for the Nano Digi on here. Yes, I do. Will it load is the question. We're going to hit the connect button. Device found, waiting connection. Please launch the Air. Please choose one of the following. So one of the problems with mini DSP in general is that their software uses like Adobe Air, I think. And if I take a mini DSP that was downstairs working just fine on my laptop with configurations and everything, if I bring it to another computer and plug it in, it's immediately like, oh, do you want to use this software to control this? Do you want to wipe it? Because your only option is to wipe it. So if you, like this happened at RMAF with the mini DSP Nano Digis, I had 2 separate Nano Digis communicating with each other, all set up on a laptop, brought them to RMAF, plugged one in, and it went, all right, we're going to wipe everything. Literally, you get this option: synchronize, restore, help, or cancel. So synchronize means what I have currently in the software is going to go to the unit. So I don't know what's in the software. I haven't opened this thing in months. So I don't want to do that. So if I hit restore, that's going to restore default configuration, which is fine because I'm going to rebuild it anyway for what we're doing here, which is very unique. But there's no option to just leave it the fuck alone. And in other words, this can't read from what's on it and bring the settings to a usable state. With the same computer, with the same software install, you can, but you bring a mini DSP from one computer that's all set up to another computer, it completely can't do it. So it either has to take what you've got here and push it, or wipe it to default. Now you can save the configs, move them to a new computer. Then when you do that, you hit default and then you reload them individually one at a time, which is what I had to do at RMAF. That's just something you should know before you are stuck with the same fuck because you didn't save it and you don't have that computer anymore or whatever. So we now have access to the mini DSP Nano Digi, which, can I pull up like a stool? Hold on. I've done reviews of this thing already. It's the most powerful audio device in the house. Actually, probably even considering the DDRC88D is in the house, this is probably still better. So here's the basic layout. Your inputs are left and right. You either choose SPDIF, which is coaxial digital, or Toslink, which is fiber optic. We want fiber optic. You could label them input 1 and 2, left and right, doesn't matter. you do have the ability to adjust the input levels and the parametric EQ, a single 5-channel parametric equalization before anything else starts on the unit. But we're not going to do that. Leaving it at zeros, we could actually... Where is foobar? I'm just going to open foobar to show you something. If foobar decides to open. Wow. Okay, Tron deresed is currently playing. If I hit the monitor button, you could see that we're bouncing. This whole graph is full because deresed is playing. If I change tracks, something quieter comes on. On the newer software, which the NanoDigi stuck on the old mini DSP software, the newer software is all white, which I don't like anyway, but it has active, constantly showing you meters, which makes it a hell of a lot easier to monitor things instead of clicking monitor, because I can click monitor and move it over. But then I click monitor here and it changes it and puts it back. So it's like, what's the point? So here's our input. Basically pick between fiber optic and coaxial digital. We know it's working. We know it's outputting. You know music is currently playing. We go to routing and you have your input 1 and input 2, left and right. And then you have outputs 1 through 8. So they're all currently set to output. Each one of those 4 coaxial digitals is left and right, left and right, left and right, left and right, normal. You can force double lefts or both channels to be blended together, put them all on. Right now, that's perfectly fine. Although I may just, there's no reason to run 2 RCA cables to that sub. There's an LFE input. I'm just running 2 because they're here already. So I may monetize one of these by putting like mono, not to make money off of it. I don't know how you'd explain that. So here's the main thing we're going to be dealing with is that we now have, and I have to get the remote for the boot cards. Blue tack, I was going to try to blue tack the boxes together to try to make that a neater pile. Then I realized if I want to use an infrared remote to control the mini DSP, I got to have that side showing. And so it's like I'm twisting it around. It's a whole thing. So we're now going to set this from optical 3 to coax. Keep the volume low. They're clicking on, which means that they're getting signal because it is just set to pass through. We can minimize this. Oh, you hear? So music's playing, but it just sounds like low end. And that's because when you default the mini DSP NanoDigi, I guess this is sort of like a re-review of the NanoDigi or me explaining how I would integrate one into a point, as a 0.1 sub in a 2.0 without using a surround receiver. This is the only way I know how to tell you to do it. With like absolute quality, you can get a mini DSP HD and that has its own DACs built in, but especially for something like these, which have DSP correction, so you want to feed them digital till it gets to it. I would recommend the slightly cheaper NanoDigi, but then you got to buy DACs. Obviously, these have their own DACs. If you have powered monitors like some Swan or from Edifier, those will have fiber optic inputs. You'll have your own DACs. Adding a sub, however, subs don't have digital inputs. You'd have to get some sort of DAC. I'll link in the description a couple of really cheap ones. FIO makes a little FIO D3. I was actually considering using it, but if you have an extra JDS Labs EL DAC. So the reason you're hearing low volume, like low rumble, is because when you set default, you would think default would have everything flat. Of course it doesn't. So here's our monitor. That's getting signal, input 1 and input 2. These are all getting left and right signal. I could rename these actually to boot card. I'm gonna call it Buck L, because I can't fit the word boot card, and Buck R. And we should be able to mute those. Yeah, they mute. And those are getting only this. Because for some reason, it tries to break, the mini DSP NanoDigi shows up thinking by default, you're obviously building a 4-way speaker system. So inputs 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and 7 and 8 are different settings. So currently, the boot carts are just getting a LR48 octave roll off at 100 hertz, which is like, that's not what anybody wants. So we're going to actually select output channel 2. We're going to link them together. which means that you can now only affect them together. We're not going to do individuals. And I'm just going to press the bypass button, which now levels the curve out so that now there's no crossover being applied to the boot carts at all. If I unmute them, we have Tron playing. Sounds wonderful. But we don't want to deal with those right now. We're going to go back and actually put a crossover the other way. We're going to cut off the low end from going to these speakers. But now we have to make the subwoofer work. Now the thing is, the subwoofer has an app. And this is the first time I'm turning it on. I love how the lights dimmed in my closet. We have got a beautiful blue array of LEDs. I'm going to lower. That's actually a love. I actually do hear the sound. I think Steve Guttenberg mentioned he heard sounds coming from the sub, and I do hear it as well. So currently we have volume selected. So now we're adjusting the volume, which I don't want to have it at maximum. That's absolutely psychotic. I'll go to halfway. Phase is currently set, and we could adjust the phase in that mini DSP as well by simply adding a couple milliseconds of delay. And then the low pass filter, which we're going to leave up all the way. Wow, that is a really annoying noise. So half volume. I will get the app installed for that because obviously I have to. And we'll see what that does. But just for now, we're just going to make it make sound, which honestly it should be doing at this point. Oh, did I pause the music? So that's playing full range into the sub. It sounds like Dookie because you're playing full range. So I have to go and diddle with the sub a little bit more, at least here. Actually don't. No, I don't. I don't have to deal with anything. We're going right back to the mini DSP and my comfortable stool. Stuhl. Yeah, Stuhl. So now we're going to label this SVS. I actually don't know if it's LNR because I didn't mark the cables. Because usually it doesn't matter, you're just plugging in RCAs. So there we go. Now we're gonna set the crossover. Oh, that's why that's why there was no low end just now. Because this one, which thinks it's supposed to be for the, like there's the sub, this one's trying to cut off below 100 and above 1,000. So it's giving me this big block in the middle, which obviously we don't want. If we bypass both of those and link the channels to channel 4, yes, yes, yes. It will now overwrite. So now if I unpause it, it is making weird sounds. Obviously, we don't want to send it. We're not going to cut off the bottom end at all. We're going to bypass. We're not even cooking that up. But we're not going to cut off at 1,000. That's too high for a sub. Let's just do 80 for now, for like a test. Press enter or unbypass, that'll do it. So now the subwoofer is getting that curve. It actually, if you could hover over it and see exactly where it is at 80 hertz, it's down 6 decibels. That's how that works. It doesn't go all the way perfectly flat to 80 and then drop off. It slowly slopes off until at negative 6 decibels is 80 hertz. So what we'd want to do, now that we've got that set, is we'd bounce back to the crossover for the boot carts. And we're going to set that to 80. 8. And my num lock is off. That will fix it. And we're going to unbypass that. So now, if you can see this, I'm not sure if the camera's picking up, there's a ghost image of where we have the subwoofers crossing over. And you have this orange one, which is where these are crossing over. And they meet perfectly there at 6 decibels. So that's the way it usually works. It's like this is going to start fading out and reach negative 6 at 80 decibels. And that's going to start fading out at 80 decibels so that they're combined. They're both going to be doing the same frequencies at some point. So you don't want to have that be at 0 because it'll be a hump there. So they're just both beautifully cresting down. 80 is probably not where we're going to keep it because that takes a lot away from these. These are capable of so much more than that. But and obviously that's not the greatest song ever. I mean, it is the greatest song ever, but you know, if I were to Pro ZD. Put this on shuffle. So now we have that, which is, again, now it's really not the best thing. But I should also be able to, once I have like the volume on that set, I could just lower the SVS sub getting output, therefore lowering the output of the JDS Labs DAC, all from this. These 4 outputs we're not using, although legitimately, and I'm not joking here, just take this into account. You have a left channel and a right channel. Those are the boot carts, fine. And I don't need a left and right in the SVS. In fact, I only need one of these outputs. I could just combine in routing and make boom, shut all these other ones off. So now that any low-end signal, any signal going to that particular output on that, just is the only thing going through the wire. And then deal with it, call it just SVS. That would leave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outputs, which if you had 3 more stereo DACs or 2 more stereo DACs, you could hook 6 subwoofers up with 2 powered monitors and have all 6 subwoofers individually tuned and crossovered and delayed. Just point that out for you crazy fuckers, because I know you're thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, huh, what if I had 5 more subwoofers? I mean, this doesn't have Dirac correction. I know there is other mini DSP products that do. This doesn't, but you can still parametrically equalize everything. And you can go into the advanced section where you type things in code, and you could do parametric equalization of every single channel on this, and individualized crossovers, which I'm just going to bypass all of them because they just make the graph look ugly. That one's already bypassed. Come on. And that one's already bypassed. So, you know, oh, that's crossover. I didn't do crossover. I was doing parametric equalization. But yeah, no, you understand like the power. Like I'm just trying to explain the power of something like this and why I'm doing it like this and not, actually what channel is this, 8? I'm going to link this to channel 7. Just so I only have to do, oh God, is that a cat behind? Is that a reflection of a cat? Boopers is very confused. I hear you, baby. So yeah, so now my crossovers is channel 6. We're going to link channel 6 with channel 5. And again, you don't have to link it. You could just never link it. Bypass, bypass. So I could also hook up other pairs of speakers or anything else. You could hook up to 4 coaxial digital stereo outputs. I bet. That's what this brush is for. In case you're wondering why there's a brush there. I'm doing a weird video, baby. The main channel's getting this one. Here, brush your face. Oh, I'd like to thank Mini DSP, by the way, for sponsoring me finally and sending me that DDDRC 8DD 88D. They didn't send me this. I purchased every Mini DSP product up until that point. I have purchased with my money or the Patreon money, depending on how you want to deal with it. But a link of it. I know some of you are just salivating now, going, huh? So he's saying I could have 2 speakers and 6 subs all done up with anything I want to do with crossovers and 5 separate channels of parametric equalization. And you don't just have to need your own DACs to do it, which I prefer, really. Okay, so right now, let's bring that crossover down because I understand 80 is too high. We'll do 60. 60 feels, not 16, 60 feels like more of what I would expect. What is this one doing? Okay, boopers. 60, enter, close. It's unfortunate how you have to deal with it though. Like you have to bounce in and out. And then instead of being 80, we're gonna bring this down. If you touch past this line, it's right click. Someone's got a motorcycle. How dare they? All right, so now we have 60. So now that crossover is happening at -6 at 60 hertz, which 20 hertz down here in this level is a lot. It's a lot of difference. Oh, and so there's 4 configs. So there's all this, everything we're dealing with. Now we can go up to config 2. It's going to say, hey, do you want to reload the config? And I'm going to say restore it. And it's going to zero it out. I actually probably should have had it just synchronize up because now I have another config where everything's back to 0. Everything's back to these stupid crossover humps and everything. What I would do is I would file, save the config once I've got it nailed down. Go into each one of the configs, reload it into each one of the configs, and then modify it slightly. So say I'm sitting here and I want to demonstrate these speakers to somebody and I don't want the sub to be involved. All I'd have to do is pull out a remote control or open this app and go config 2. Config 2 has no subwoofer enabled. Or maybe I go to config 3 and config 3 has the subwoofer enabled, but like 4 decibels louder, or with a different delay, because I could set the delay in milliseconds up to 9 milliseconds. The nicer software, the newer units, can do milliseconds delay up to 1,000 milliseconds. So it's over 100 times more delay you can set. 1,000 milliseconds is a lot. 9 milliseconds is just fine for doing basic tuning stuff. But yeah, now let's go back to config 1, which it won't ask me to load because it's already book. See all the names stayed book, buck, R, SVS, SVS. Chewbacca, you want to go to the vet? No? No, you're good. Another problem that I'm going to have with this setup is that my volume on the boot carts is independent. I lower it down, look, and the subwoofer doesn't know I did that. That could be fixed because there is a master volume on the Nano Digi. You have to program a remote control to do it, or you can go up here and physically type it in. I don't think I can arrow key it. No, I think I have to actually assign a remote control to lower and raise the master volume, which is what I'm going to end up doing, considering that anyway. So I won't have to use the beautiful glowing thing. All right, so yeah, that's basically the video today. Was just me explaining how I did this and what are the capabilities again of a mini DSP Nano Digi, or even it would work with an HD. You only have 4 analog channels, which means left and right, and then up to 2 subs. But you're also using the DACs inside the mini DSP HD, which I know I said most DACs sound the same, but when you're cramming 2 stereo DACs in a $200 unit, and then there's all this other processing stuff, you could tell where they skimped is a little bit on the DACs. They sound a little bit grainier. If you don't have like if you're not using like insanely expensive stuff, spend $200. It's worth it just to play around with it. But if you have the ability to use your own DACs, or if your speakers have digital input anyway, then you only need a cheap DAC. It's probably worth going with the mini DSP Nano Digi for that sort of thing. So now I'm gonna start my listening session with the SVS 3000 Micro 3000, and I'm gonna tune it in so that I could just use it in this room. Because this room is like my shit kicker. Sit down. Sit down. It's coming, isn't it? Come on. You know you want to. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Chewbacca doesn't like hanging in the basement. She likes hanging right here. This is where this happens. What a good girl. Anyway, so thank you for stopping by for this little short random video showing you just how I would implement this. The only issue being now the volume control has to move over to the mini DSP, which is fine. I kind of wish that the boot carts had a sub out. I grasp the concept that they are the greatest fucking low-end producing speakers on the face of the earth, and therefore why would they insult themselves by offering that? But I mean, when they eventually come out with the 7.1 control unit, I think that'll have a sub out, and then it'll be super easy, barely an inconvenience. I'm with my cat now. So thank you for stopping by. If you'd like to support these videos and see reviews early and weird videos like this early, or tell me if you even like this video, Patreon and subscribe star in the comments and the description. Oh, she loves ears. She loves her ears rubbed. See reviews early, participate in yard sales, which the things I don't sell in yard sales end up getting thrown into piles like this, and let's try something new. If you want to talk to me directly or ask me any questions, the $10 a month Patreon or subscribe star Telegram chat is available. You just at Zeosprinteria in there, and I will come running. Well, I'll come checking every 2 hours or so. But other people will help you out too, which is fantastic. You get access to the $10 and higher only, or lifetime chat only swap meet, which is filled with people that this hobby. I didn't think people sold this much stuff. But people sell everything they buy, and then they buy more stuff than they sell, than they buy and sell. So if you want to access that swap meet chat, that is also once you're beyond the $10 a month Telegram plan. Look at her; she took over my seat. And the wallpaper, the tank girl with the sippy cup, Zeos, the girl drinking tea over there. I've got another one with the girl yelling on my other computer, but this one's nice. I like this one. It's a tiger tank. Is that a tiger? I don't think it's a tiger, but I like tanks and anime girls, so that's why we're doing this. So yeah, and you'll get the review of the SVS 3000 Micro when I feel like moving it around, because I'm probably going to do a lot of breaking up here, listening, initial listening, testing. I know how things sound in this room, and then I'll put it in my main home theater and see if it could actually push a basement. I'll be very impressed if that can come even close to the 15-inch Rhythmic, because they are roughly the same price. I think that's $800, and I think the Rhythmic was $9, and now it's $11. So they're within the same like plus $700 ballpark. And that's it. You ready, baby? I like this video too. It feels like I did work, and we got some content out of it, so that's good, right? All right, 2 days after the end of the video where I'm like, yeah, I'll be done, I thought I'd show you around what's changed and what I've figured out using the system. Firstly, I've programmed in so that my TV's remote can now switch configurations and adjust the volume. You can see master volume is here, and the volume control on the TV will literally lower it. Now that is irrelevant. There's no sound coming out of the television. It shares just the same principle. It's not doing anything. But here you can see them -60, -50, 40, 30, so on. So I now can just use one remote. These speakers, I don't have to ever touch their remote, and the subwoofer is set and done. I actually haven't installed the app yet because it's just pretty much set that, leave it. I've also controlling the level of the sub here, and I've been pushing it up and down. I'm at -9 dB, so I could just go there and lower that and then push this back to 0, but I'd rather have the ability to swing up and down on the app or on this, not the sub. Oh, I'm screwing with that. That's not good. Hold on. I have to do that. One of the problems with this is I'm using it for the FLIRC as well. So basically, this section up here is to control foobar and things through a FLIRC, which I will link in the description. And then the volume up and down and the numbers 1 through 4 are being programmed into the mini DSP. And you do that right here. You go infrared remote and you go IR learning, and it's literally press a button, then press a button, and it's like, all right, I got it, and you're done. So I don't need to switch between optical and SPDIF. I don't need a master mute. Although I probably could use a master mute. What would I use in my master mute? Where's the mute button? There's a mute button. All right, so let's program a master mute. So let's go master mute, learn, click, learn successfully. There you go. So now you can see audio turns off or audio turns on, which I have to, if I wanted to sync with what the TV's doing, I have to do it sort of like without it being able to see it. Hold on. There you go. No. So now that's going to be on when that's not. So there's a way to do this where I can just, okay, there we go. So now that looks like it's muted and that's muted, even though it's not actually, this doesn't matter. This is just a visual representation. So I taught it a button for you guys. The other thing I figured out to do was moved it to just a single thing. This is the sub, and none of these are used. And introduce and delay. Usually when you do delay, you delay the subwoofer. But the speakers are much closer to me than the subwoofer. So there's no point in delaying the subwoofer. I actually had to delay these speakers, which you can do when you have a nano digi in line or a processor in line, is there's a 7 millisecond delay, which is equivalent to 2.5 meters, according to this, because it'll tell you in meters how long the audio delay is in distance, because how fast the speed of sound is pretty fucking relevant and consistent. Is it consistent sea level versus whatever, 2.408. So I'd say that's at least 6 feet behind it, maybe 7 feet. So there's your 2.4. So 7 millisecond delay on these. So that means you can experience things like desync and lips. When you're playing music, it doesn't matter. Maybe the VU meter will be slightly off, but like 7 milliseconds, you're never going to notice it. And I think there's also an inherent delay of just the wireless connection to the speakers. And so I just sat and played a very bassy track, which I don't remember what it was. It probably wasn't Prodigy Nasty, the Spore remix, but something extremely bass heavy. Oh, I know what it was. It was theme of Glenn Burrows. Glenn Burrows from Megalobox. Yeah, it was that. and you feel that whomp. And when the timing is off from these to that, you can tell from the seating position. And I just put it to extremes, and I just kept closing the gap. I brought it up a bunch, and then I brought the sub up to meet it, and then I figured out what the difference was, and I just lowered the sub delay to 0, and these as low as it'll go. So 7, I could probably get over like 6.5 milliseconds. And finally, what's the finally? I just had a thought. I'm like, oh, I have to talk about that too. The delay. Oh, I've lowered the crossover. I keep lowering the crossover. So now it's at 50, but I'm going to actually take it to 45 hertz. Because I started at 80, and then I moved from 80 to 60, and then from 60 to 50. And because you don't grasp it. Not that you don't grasp it. I'm about to make you grasp it. But the more your speakers can do, the more you want to let them do. Oh, by the way, I will also link to the REM and RAM matching noodle stoppers. They're cheap. These speakers can do down to like 40 easy, 40, 35. And when you put a sub in line, most people will set the sub to do too much work because they want their sub. It's new. It's their new expensive thing. It's a new toy. You just want that to help. It almost feels like you're wasting your money on a sub if you set it up correctly. Because, you hear a Honda go by with the subwoofer and the fucking trunk's rattling, and it's like, that guy's got a sub. And you don't want to be that guy, but you kind of want to be that guy. And that subwoofer really should just barely be noticeable. You should be like, wow, this sounds good and balanced. And then if you're like, wow, you got a kick-ass sub, you've gone too fucking far. So figuring out how far down to push that and how much responsibility to leave on the speakers, and getting it so that only the most impossible frequency response, which I don't know what actually that is frequency down to. I'm going to assume at SVS it's under 20, which these speakers will not do under 20, but that'll do under 20. And so it's just a matter of finding out, okay, fill in this gap under here and be calm about it. And that's basically where we are right now. So remote control can now do my music because of a flick, but it can also do the volume, and we can, where the hell's my mute button? Master mute. So if I'm playing music, that subwoofer that's getting its review. This is not the review, but I can master mute my thing. I can switch profiles, which I don't have the profiles currently set. So I set config 2. Of course, it won't switch configs now. I'll have to re-fucking bind that key. But 3, 4. All right, well, you can assign the things and then have it switch around. At least the volume and the mute work. But yeah, so that's where we're at with this clusterfuck down here under the table. It works fantastically. You don't need to spend $200 on a DAC for a subwoofer, especially since it's only using one channel. I got to unplug one of the things. I think as soon as you have LFE plugged in, it just uses that. Like it just assumes like that's the one you're using, obviously. Don't need anything else. So yeah. And this will work with any powered, if you were to do this sort of setup, I've got a $4,500 set of monitors. You don't need that. You could do anything that has, it's easier if it has a digital input, if it's like an Edifier setup. Edifier, the 7000 BTs or the 1850s. I'll link those in the description. Those are just very simple powered monitors with a fiber optic input or a coaxial digital input. This outputs coaxial digital. I will link in the description, Zeos, the converter that converts coaxial digital to fiber optic. So you're not shit out of luck if you're like, oh, I have it, but I don't have it. You can just easily convert that for like $12 or $16. It's a little box, and you plug it in USB, and it goes, coaxial digital in, fiber optic out. That's how we did all of our math. Because you can't run 70-foot lengths of coaxial digital, but we were able to run 200-foot lengths of fiber optic by taking mini DSP, converting it to fiber optic, and then boom. So yeah, you can do all these things. And I hope this was a helpful video. It's sort of like, I've always meant to make this setup, and that little sub was like the first thing that inspired me to do it, because it's like, that's an expensive quality. Like I want to know what mini subs from SVS sound like, and I want to do it in this room, which I'm using it the most. And that's the ultimate way to add a subwoofer, is a mini DSP, so you can actually go in and tell it, hey speakers, don't even try to do fucking 50 hertz because you're terrible at it. Let the subwoofer do it. And most little amplifiers that you just have a sub out. When you plug the subwoofer in, it's either a fixed value of like 80, which is way too high, or you have full range out to the sub, and then the speakers don't change at all. The problem when adding a sub to a 2.1 or 2.0 is that you really need to take away the bass notes from the speakers that are having a hard time doing it. These speakers, expensive as shit. They don't have a hard time doing it. Cheaper speakers, even things like Canto Tucks or Vanitus, you don't want the Vanitu. When you plug into the Vanitu or the Canto Tuck, you can actually set it to stop trying to play low end because, you know, I'm having a hard time with it. Let the sub deal with it. Those are more advanced speakers. But things like Swans, they're very proud speakers, I would say that, because they don't shut off, they don't have a sub out. None of them have a sub out. But with a setup like this, I can go grab any pair of Swans, pop it here, plug it in digital, have that set up on its little cheap DAC. It could be a $20 DAC because it's a fucking subwoofer, and low frequencies you cannot tell the quality of the DAC through, you know, 18 hertz. It's a big fucking rough number. And I can just this will add a sub to basically any speaker setup. This is capable of it, because you could even put another DAC. Put another DAC and an amp and then speakers, and you could have a whole passive setup. Mini DSP, basically. This is a secondary review of the Mini DSP Nano Digi, is what I'm basically fucking saying, because at $170 for this software and that piece of hardware, and then you throw a couple DACs or have digital interfaces, and you're great. It's good to go. I'm done now. Here, I think the next time you see me in this room will be the start of the review for the SVS, where I can. It's very good. I'm starting with that. It's like I'm trying to break it in. I believe in breaking for speakers and drivers that have to move. But yeah, no, I think my brain's breaking because that closet's exploding. Anyway, I'm done. I got to clean up the $1,300 DAC mess on the floor, and then we'll see you tomorrow for another review, an actual review, not a weird whatever this is.